Recently, one of the largest Bitcoin mining pools was caught rejecting transactions from wallets sanctioned by the United States. The incident has reignited the debate about Bitcoin's censorship resistance, and it's likely to heat up as asset managers like BlackRock continue to increase their stakes in the largest Bitcoin mining companies. That's why today we're going to explain what censorship resistance is, reveal the ways the people in power could try to censor Bitcoin, and look at how this can be prevented. If you hold BTC, this could be one of the most important videos you will ever watch. In crypto, censorship resistance refers to a coin or token's ability to process all transactions according to the rules of the blockchain. In other words, it means that all transactions and wallets are treated equally by the network, regardless of what the transactions are for or who the wallets belong to. Of course, Bitcoin's censorship resistance is a double-edged sword. On the one side, it means that it's next to impossible for the people in power to control how regular people transact. On the other side, however, it also means that it's next to impossible to control how criminals transact. Naturally, some have argued that Bitcoin's censorship resistance is a problem for this reason. Others, however, have rightfully pointed out that the moment you make it possible to censor transactions for just a few people, then it becomes possible to censor transactions for everyone. At first, this power to censor transactions would be used for reasons that everyone would likely be on board with, like stopping criminals. As time goes on, however, this power would be used for reasons that are much less justifiable. Some would argue that this has already happened in the traditional financial system. Look no further than CBDCs for evidence of that. Link in the description if you don't know what I'm talking about. Now, in case that wasn't clear enough, censorship resistance has been a hot topic in crypto since before Bitcoin even existed. However, it wasn't until November 2018 that the debates began. This is when the US Office of Foreign Assets Control, or OFAC, sanctioned Bitcoin wallet addresses for the first time. For context, OFAC sanctions forbid US entities from doing business directly or indirectly with sanctioned entities, be they individuals, institutions, or nation-states. While OFAC sanctions are technically restricted to the US, violating them overseas can result in regulatory scrutiny or even new sanctions being imposed. This is why OFAC sanctioning Bitcoin wallet addresses was such a big deal. Bitcoin miners in the US could potentially face regulatory scrutiny if they processed BTC transactions going to or coming from these wallets. Bitcoin miners overseas who process these transactions could also face regulatory scrutiny. For reference, when a BTC transaction is sent, it gets verified by Bitcoin nodes. Now, Bitcoin nodes store the full transaction history of all BTC transactions, and they check that history to see if the BTC transaction being sent is valid or not. If it is valid, then it's added to the mempool, which you can think of as being a virtual waiting room. Bitcoin miners then choose which BTC transactions in the mempool they want to include in the Bitcoin block they've mined. FYI, each block is basically a bundle of BTC transactions. It's at this stage where a Bitcoin miner could choose not to include transactions related to sanctioned wallet addresses. In theory, there are millions of Bitcoin miners around the world. And this means that there's always a miner somewhere which will process a transaction regardless of sanctions. In reality, however, most Bitcoin mining is done by a handful of mining pools, two of whom control more than 50% of Bitcoin's hash rate. Now, for those unfamiliar, mining pools are centralized entities which make it possible for Bitcoin miners to combine their mining power in order to mine BTC together. The main reason this is done is to make mining rewards more predictable. The BTC rewards from every mined block are shared based on mining power. Now, on paper, the fact that more than 50% of Bitcoin's hash rate is coming from two mining pools is a problem. That's because if you control more than 50% of Bitcoin's mining power, you could theoretically manipulate BTC transactions. If these two pools colluded, that is, worked together, they could do just that. In practice, however, if a mining pool does something that the individual miners in it don't like, they can easily redirect their mining power to a different pool. This has happened many times before. One of the most notable examples is Poolin, which miners abandoned after it stopped paying out BTC rewards last year. As you might have guessed, this is what happened to F2 Pool after it was revealed that it had been censoring transactions from entities sanctioned by OFAC. F2 Pool initially defended the decision, but eventually removed the OFAC filter, presumably because it started losing mining power. However, this is just the tip of the Bitcoin censorship iceberg. And if you're enjoying the video so far, by the way, be sure to smash that like button to give it a boost. Now, if you watched our video about decentralization, you'll know that there are many layers to it. The same is true for censorship resistance, and indeed, the two are closely related. In the case of Bitcoin censorship resistance, the first layer is the service layer. This includes exchanges and wallets. Obviously, exchanges are centralized entities. This means that they can freeze BTC transactions going to or coming from Bitcoin wallets they don't like. The example that comes to mind here were the BTC donations that were sent to the truckers protesting the pandemic restrictions in Canada last February. Many of these donations found their way onto centralized exchanges. The Canadian government subsequently ordered these exchanges to freeze all BTC coming from or going to wallets associated with the protesters. If you're watching this video, though, chances are that you already knew about this risk. That's why you keep your BTC on your own personal crypto wallet. And I'll note that the Coin Bureau Deals page has the biggest discounts on the best hardware wallets, link in description. But what if I told you that your own personal crypto wallets may not be as censorship resistant as you might think? In January last year, Trezor implemented a feature that would essentially make it possible to tie your identity to your wallet address for compliance purposes. Trezor later apologized and removed the feature after a public backlash, and other wallets which supported the protocol subsequently followed suit. If you're wondering why, the answer is that slippery slope I mentioned earlier. This protocol effectively made it possible to signal to an exchange that you were the owner of the wallet address in question. Over time, this basic feature could evolve into complex KYC requirements to create a wallet address. Then, earlier this year, Ledger came under fire for a feature called Ledger Recover. To refresh your memory, this feature would make it possible for you to recover your crypto if you lost access to your seed phrase. The catch is that this feature would simultaneously make it possible for the government to seize your crypto. The fact that Ledger's software was closed source led to concerns that this ability existed on all devices, even though Ledger Recover was an opt-in service. Fortunately, Ledger subsequently announced that it would gradually open source its code. Unfortunately, the Ledger Recover feature still launched. Now, to be clear, Trezor and Ledger are both safe and both offer excellent hardware wallets. Even if they started to place arbitrary restrictions on their users, then it would be easy to use your seed phrase to access your BTC holdings via another wallet provider, just like the Bitcoin miners and the mining pools. But what if Bitcoin censorship was taking place at a deeper level than wallets or exchanges? Well, this ties into the second layer of Bitcoin censorship resistance, and that's the protocol level. Now, you can think of protocols as applications on the Bitcoin blockchain. Two of the most popular protocols on Bitcoin are Layer 2 protocols like the Lightning Network and mixing protocols like CoinJoin. If you saw our video about the Lightning Network, you'll know that it consists of payment channels that are made by locking BTC into jointly owned wallets. The parties who have locked this BTC can then transact within it at the speed of the internet and settle their transactions when they close the joint wallet. You'll also know that the Lightning Network isn't perfect. One of its biggest limitations is that it requires locking up a lot of BTC. This makes it difficult and inconvenient for regular BTC holders to create payment channels. The result is that most of the Lightning Network's traffic goes through just a few payment channels. And this is a problem because it turns what is supposed to be a decentralized Layer 2 on Bitcoin into something that looks more like the traditional financial system, with a handful of intermediaries having the ability to control and oversee almost all transactions, thanks to special nodes called watchtowers. And this is one of the reasons why not everyone is a fan of El Salvador's Bitcoin adoption. The government's Chivo wallet uses the Lightning Network, and there have been reports of wallets being frozen when receiving BTC from or sending BTC to mixing protocols. Creating a Chivo wallet also requires KYC. As you just learned, though, Salvadorans can just use a Bitcoin wallet with a different Lightning channel to bypass these restrictions, which is good news. The bad news is that some mixing protocols are implementing these restrictions at the protocol level, namely the parent company of the Wasabi wallet. For those unfamiliar, mixing protocols make it possible to increase the privacy of BTC transactions. This is done by pooling a large number of BTC transactions together before sending them to recipient addresses. The Wasabi wallet is a popular Bitcoin wallet that offers this feature. Now, it's important to note that mixing protocols do not make BTC private. All BTC transactions are publicly viewable. Mixing protocols just make it more difficult to discern who the sender and a recipient are in a transaction. If the mixing protocol doesn't have much BTC in it, then it's easy to identify counterparties. In the case of Wasabi Wallet, its parent company, ZK Snacks, announced in March last year that it would not pool BTC transactions coming from certain wallets, and not just those that have been sanctioned. The Wasabi GitHub appears to contain a long list of problematic BTC transactions that will not pool. These include BTC transactions related to sales of controlled substances, related to the sale of any items that infringe copyright, and even those related to the sale of fireworks. As you can imagine, the Bitcoin community was not happy. The only exceptions were Wasabi's competitors. You'll have to DYOR on those. Now, in Wasabi's defense, Bitcoin mixers have experienced severe regulatory scrutiny due to their privacy features. OFAC sanctioned a Bitcoin mixer for the first time in May last year. This was shortly before OFAC sanctioned Tornado Cash, the now famous, or infamous, mixing protocol on Ethereum. But at least it's impossible to censor transactions on the Bitcoin blockchain itself, right?
Are you ready for deals? Are you ready for trading fee discounts? Are you ready to save some money? If the answer is yes, then you're ready for the Coin Bureau Deals page. Yes, Coin Bureau brings you the very best deals and promotions in all of crypto. You won't find offers like these anywhere else.
Discounts on the best hardware wallets!
Exchange sign-up bonuses of up to $40,000!
Trading fee discounts of up to 60%! Coin Bureau's brand new altcoin-focused subscription service! The Coin Bureau Deals page is even better for you than this piece of succulent, protein-rich, nutritious grilled chicken!
Head on over to coinbureau.com/deals or click the link in the description below. Don't delay. Check out the Coin Bureau Deals page today.
These deals are so hot, I need to cool down. Yeah! Whew!
This relates to Bitcoin's third layer of censorship resistance, and that's the Bitcoin blockchain itself. To refresh your memory, Bitcoin miners can decide which BTC transactions to include in a block, and if a group of miners can get more than 50% of the hash rate, then they can manipulate BTC transactions. By now, you'll know that there's always a Bitcoin miner somewhere that will process a BTC transaction, regardless of how tainted it supposedly is, and that a mining pool taking control of most of the hash rate is practically impossible because individual miners would switch pools to ensure this doesn't happen. However, you'll also recall that asset managers like BlackRock have started buying stocks related to the Bitcoin mining industry. This has been primarily via their ETFs, which reportedly hold billions of dollars of shares in the largest publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies in the United States. One of these companies is Marathon Digital, which, similarly to F2 Pool, came under fire for launching an OFAC-compliant mining pool in May 2021 and subsequently backpedaled. The difference is that, as a publicly traded company, Marathon Digital ultimately answers to shareholders like BlackRock. And as we've seen, these investors are obsessed with the environmental footprint of Bitcoin mining. This is why MicroStrategy CEO Michael Saylor founded the Bitcoin Mining Council in June 2021. One of the main purposes of the council is to prove that Bitcoin miners in the US are using the right kind of energy. As we pointed out back then, one of the consequences of this initiative is that it could result in a list of all Bitcoin mining operations in the US becoming available to US authorities. This could make it possible for US authorities to pressure Bitcoin miners to adhere to OFAC sanctions using all manner of means. And not only that, but if you watched our video about ESG and cryptocurrency, you'll know that these asset managers actually aren't concerned about the environmental aspects of Bitcoin mining. They know it's BS. What they take issue with is the governance, their inability to control Bitcoin and BTC transactions. This is presumably why asset managers are so interested in Bitcoin mining. Consider that a clause in BlackRock's spot ETF filing implies that if Bitcoin forks, BlackRock will have the power to choose which fork it supports with its ETF. BlackRock could use its influence over miners to ensure this fork survives. Now, at first glance, the growing influence of asset managers like BlackRock on the Bitcoin mining industry isn't necessarily a cause for concern. That's because not all Bitcoin miners are publicly traded, and not all of Bitcoin's hash rate comes from Bitcoin miners that are based in the United States. Upon closer inspection, however, you'll realize that the United States is gradually accounting for a growing share of Bitcoin's total hash rate, 38% as of 2022. More importantly, Bitcoin mining is a capital-intensive industry, meaning that miners need lots of money if they want to survive and thrive. With over $30 trillion in assets under management, the largest asset managers in the US have no shortage of such capital to offer these miners to support their operations. But, like all loans, these offers would come with lots of conditions. In this case, you can bet that it would include stuff about ESG and OFAC. But this assumes that the Bitcoin miners influenced by asset managers will become the biggest. Thankfully, this seems unlikely because there are in fact millions of Bitcoin miners around the world that can't be coerced, and they will likely continue to account for most of Bitcoin's hash rate indefinitely. The only way these individual miners can be influenced is via the mining pools they use, and Jack Dorsey, of all people, recently made an investment in a new mining pool that will eliminate this influence. This mining pool is called Ocean. It's non-custodial, meaning that it issues BTC rewards directly to miners. This sidesteps the possibility of censorship because there is no centralized operator that can be coerced to comply with ESG, OFAC, sanctions, or otherwise. With a bit of luck, Bitcoin mining pools like Ocean will become the standard. This is guaranteed if we continue to see existing pools bend the knee. But what if there was a push for compliance at a level that goes even deeper than the Bitcoin blockchain? And this pertains to the final layer of Bitcoin censorship resistance, and that's the hardware. Now, believe it or not, but more than 75% of Bitcoin mining is done using hardware that was made by a single company. This is an uncomfortable truth that's nevertheless widely known but seldom spoken about in the crypto community. The company in question is Bitmain, which apparently was once the largest company in crypto, and by some estimates still is. Bitmain was recently in the headlines for reportedly pausing payments to employees, suggesting that the mega company is short on cash. Now, if you watched our video about the war for Bitcoin, you'll know that Bitmain was one of the key players in the struggle to change Bitcoin's block size. You'll also know that Bitmain wasn't allied with any side per se. Rather, it appeared that the company just wanted to make as much money as possible. This is further evidenced by the fact that Bitmain has applied to list on stock exchanges in at least 3 countries: Hong Kong, arguably China, Germany, and even the United States. Interestingly though, Bitmain has not been successful in any of its IPO applications so far, but is reportedly still planning to IPO somewhere. As you just learned, asset managers like BlackRock are some of the largest shareholders in the largest Bitcoin mining companies in the US. As some of you will also know, this isn't just the case for Bitcoin miners, nor is it the case in the US. They hold large stakes in publicly listed companies around the world. Given their sudden interest in Bitcoin, it stands to reason that BlackRock and its fellow asset managers will rush to buy up shares in Bitmain if it lists on a stock exchange, regardless of the country. This would give them a huge influence over the company that produces almost all Bitcoin mining machines. At that point, these asset managers could demand that Bitmain comply with all manner of criteria. Maybe they'd be prevented from selling their machines to miners who don't have a high ESG score. Maybe they would have to put OFAC compliance into the hardware of the mining machines themselves. Now, this is a terrifying possibility, and it's one that not enough people are talking about. This is likely a result of nobody being willing to address the elephant in the room. Bitcoin's reliance on Bitmain could become a big problem for BTC in the not-so-distant future. Thankfully, there are other ASIC manufacturers out there. And, realistically, this is not a risk that Bitcoin will have to contend with anytime soon. Recent events also suggest that if the powers that be did try to take control of Bitcoin's hardware, the Bitcoin community would respond with countermeasures, just like Jack Dorsey stepping in to fund a new mining pool. It's easy to forget that the more that Bitcoin is adopted and understood, the more resilience there is at every layer of Bitcoin's censorship resistance. That's simply because it's in every BTC holder's best interest to ensure that Bitcoin remains as censorship resistant as possible, even the asset managers. After all, without censorship resistance, Bitcoin is just a more dystopian version of the existing financial system, a financial system that nobody would voluntarily adopt or invest in. BTC's value would quickly go to zero, and that would be bad for everyone. Well, except maybe the central banks and governments. That said, though, it seems that even the central banks are preparing to buy BTC, and you can find out more about that in the description too. Okay folks, that's about all for today's video. So if you learned something new, let me know by smashing that like button. If you want to keep learning, subscribe to the channel and ping that notification bell. If you want to help others learn, take a second to share this video. Remember to check the Coin Bureau deals page if you're looking for a secure crypto wallet or looking to trade or accumulate BTC on exchanges. It's got trading fee discounts of up to 60% and bonuses of up to 40 grand on the best ones. The link is, again, in the description. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Guy, over and out.